Okay, let's unpack this. Think about the stories you grew up with about love.
Hmm.
Maybe it was a fairy tale, a classic rom-com, or perhaps that one, incredible family legend you heard 100 times.
Right. The ones that stick with you.
These narratives are powerful, aren't they? They sort of shape what we hope for and expect from love, often in ways we don't fully grasp.
Absolutely. They create a kind of mental blueprint,
Yeah.
you know, influencing our perceptions and desires long before we navigate our own romantic lives.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're exploring a really insightful collection of essays and memoir
Yeah.
that uses personal experience, family history, and a deep dive into research, everything from neuroscience to sociology to challenge those traditional love stories.
Our goal in this deep dive is, well, to really understand the complexity of love presented in these sources.
Right.
We'll look beyond the simplified fairy tales to see its history, its biology, and how its meaning shifts across time and for individuals.
And the ultimate mission to help you consider what it means to step away from a pre-written script and start writing your own definition of love.
Yeah, finding your own path.
So let's begin with the hold these romantic stories have on us. The author shares this incredibly vivid, cherished memory of her parents' meeting.
Okay.
It happened in a tiny Virginia coal mining town. Her mom was a cheerleader, her dad the new football coach.
Right. The story she loved to tell is that her mom had to interview him for the school paper.
Ah, the classic setup.
Exactly. They became friends, dated secretly, and 4 years later had a double wedding with her mom's sister and his best friend at the Baptist church.
It sounds picture perfect, doesn't it? Very wholesome, very American, very Appalachian. For the author, this was the love story, the standard bearer.
And because of this narrative, she came to believe love wasn't just luck or chemistry, it was like a virtue.
A moral achievement.
Yeah, something you earned by making the right choices.
But then the story took a turn she never expected. Her parents divorced. It felt like a devastatingly wrong ending to what she thought was perfect. If even this seemingly ideal story could fall apart, well, it stripped away any sense of guarantee in love.
Right. Even for people who seem so committed.
Exactly.
This was a crucial realization.
Yeah.
The stories that had fueled her hopes were proving inadequate for the reality of relationships.
Yeah.
That's what propelled her deep dive into understanding love through different lenses, asking what science, history, or sociology could tell her that the simple stories couldn't.
It really makes you question the language we use, too. We say we fall in love. We're struck by it. We have a crush. We swoon. It's a burning passion, a broken heart.
Yeah, it's all passive.
It's always presented as something that happens to us, something outside our conscious will. The author wondered if understanding the science might allow her to, regain some sense of agency.
And this idea became particularly public when her essay about using Arthur Arendt's 36 questions study went viral.
Oh, yeah, I remember that piece.
She observed that people seemed to gravitate towards the short version, craving that oversimplified romantic fable, the idea that there's one specific ideal path to love, like following a predictable script.
Exactly. People would ask her constantly if she and the man from the essay were still together, if they got married.
Right. They weren't just curious.
No.
They wanted proof of love's script playing out, validating their own assumptions about how love should work.
It's like they needed that closure.
The insight here is that while love stories are beautiful and captivating, they can also limit our sense of what's possible for our own lives. Love in reality is messy and complex, and the author found that embracing that complexity and writing her essays was a way to write my own script for love, to actively wrest control over her own narrative.
This tension between the expected script and reality is powerfully illustrated by a specific moment the author describes with her partner, Kevin.
Okay.
They had been together for 9 years, and for Canadian immigration purposes, they had the option to sign a statutory declaration of common law union.
Ah, the legal side of things.
Right. But the sheer irony of the moment was striking.
How so?
They signed this legal document declaring their long-term partnership after weeks of deep, painful indecision about potentially breaking up.
Wow. So the timing was awkward.
Totally. Kevin brought the form home saying, "It's official. We are now married in the eyes of the Canadian government," right when their relationship felt anything but certain.
It highlights how external structures and, well, convenient legal options can suddenly formalize a relationship at a moment when the internal reality is completely out of sync with the together forever narrative.
Yeah, it's quite a disconnect.
It brings to mind psychologist John Gottman's work showing that long-term partners become physiologically interdependent.
Oh, interesting.
Their bodies actually regulate each other's heart rate and immune systems. But the author notes Gottman also found chronic stress occurs when individual needs aren't met within that bond.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly. She wondered which dynamic was at play for them, citing a poignant detail. Kevin sleepily trying to soothe her cough by holding her. A mix of old comfort and present tension.
Despite feeling a deep sense of alienation and worrying she had signed a contract with love that couldn't be undone, she still felt tethered by her fundamental human need for his time, company, and physical connection. She even thought it would be easier if one of them could just stop loving the other entirely.
That's a painful thought. This personal uncertainty connected back to the larger questions raised by her parents' divorce. Witnessing that even the most well-matched people could fail shattered her previous belief in finding a singular, perfect person, the mythical, the one.
She describes looking at old photographs like one on a wedding boat and seeing palpable evidence of love and happiness. Smiles that looked like the expressions I'd been looking for, and grappling with how those moments fit into her current feelings of doubt.
Her parents' simple explanation for their split, "We just don't love each other anymore, not like we used to," led her to a painful question. Does time inevitably corrode love?
Yeah, does it always fade?
Does long-term commitment always require settling? Would all long-term relationships eventually lead to quiet, perhaps inadequate salmon dinners and growing apart?
That's bleak. She felt the pressure of societal expectation, comparing herself to friends like Liz, who seemed completely certain about her partner, describing them as people who knew they were going to heaven. This easy certitude from others made her question if she was the irrational one for holding on to a relationship filled with doubt.
The very idea of choosing a partner becomes complicated. How do you differentiate between a good person and a good partner?
Right. They're not always the same thing.
She uses the choose-your-own-adventure book analogy. A traditional narrative suggests limited paths lead to a happy ending. Maybe just one alternative, like a common-law marriage with a dog. Which path, if either, actually promises happiness?
And then there's the anxiety about the one great love theory. What if Kevin was hers and any future love would inherently feel diluted in comparison?
Yeah, that fear of missing out or having already missed it.
She tried to strip away love's overwhelming power by using the detached, mundane language of science, courtship energy, mammalian mate choice.
Trying to make it less
magical.
Maybe less scary.
Yeah.
The shift in their relationship from boyfriend-girlfriend to partner, and finally through the immigration process to spouse, highlighted how external forces can change the definition of an intimate bond. She was initially attracted to Kevin precisely because he didn't want to be a spouse at 20. But now she wondered if a stable, sporty station wagon kind of life was so terrible.
Priorities change, right?
Definitely. The thought of life without the familiar comforts, even just the dog hairs on the futon, triggered a simmering panic.
She describes fighting the ingrained impulse to please him, like forgetting to buy granola and having to actively stop herself from running to the store.
Oh, that's telling. She started picturing a life alone where no one would even notice or care if she forgot something small. This made her realize how much she had become an adult within that relationship and questioned who she would be without the gravitational pull of his habits and preferences.
This led to a moment of stark clarity, a crystallizing impulse, feeling nauseous at the thought of signing a new lease together.
Wow.
She knew deep down that she wanted her own apartment, even if it meant facing winter alone while he went skiing.
That's a huge realization.
To truly understand the scripts we live by, we have to look at their origins, often rooted in our families and the socioeconomic worlds they inhabited.
Absolutely, history matters.
The author takes us deep into her mama's story, growing up in a coal mining camp called Buzzard's Roost.
It was a hard life. Houses were divided. Mama lived with her aunt and uncle near her father, who lived in a different camp. Football games were a big deal. Yeah, because they offered a rare chance to get out of the mountains. Mama understated her childhood difficulty, saying simply there wasn't that much to tell, and lamenting not having nice things. Her own dad joked, coal miner's daughter was about her, claiming he bought her first shoes. Her mother remembered details like moon pies, RC Cola, and Mama being called Zipper because she was so skinny.
Wow, these little details paint such a picture. Mama's story of meeting Pawpaw is almost a classic romance trope. seeing a big, tall, handsome, good-looking soldier at the commissary.
Right.
A brief, simple exchange while he was on leave from Europe.
But the different perspectives on their meeting reveal the underlying reality. While Mama romanticized it, only Mama talked about love.
Yeah.
Her mother saw it through the lens of circumstance. Mama was a workhorse, and marriage was a potential escape route from grinding poverty.
A practical decision.
And an aunt viewed it with pity, seeing Papa getting involved due to Mama's difficult situation.
Mama married Papa at 15. He was only a few years older than her own father.
Wow, 15.
When asked about the age difference, Mama's response was simple and direct. Honey, I loved him more than anything. Age didn't matter. And when asked about having so many children so quickly, she laughed and said, we didn't have a TV. We had to keep ourselves busy somehow.
This reveals a different kind of love story, one defined by survival and necessity as much as affection.
Yeah, definitely.
Mama's life was hard, focused on poverty and caretaking. There was a separation due to Papa's drinking, but she still talked to him, romanticizing driving together, saying he was as good as he was ever bad.
Complicated.
Very. She was proud that she never remarried after Papa died, despite having suitors still holding on to the memory of her first love, Pat, from when she was 12.
It's powerful to see the parallels she draws to Loretta Lynn's story in Coal Miner's Daughter.
Lynn grew up in a similar coal camp, second of 8 kids, married a returning soldier at 15, 4 kids in 5 years.
So many similarities.
Lynn described her husband Du as her life, making her feel something special, but also wrote frankly about his alcoholism, philandering, and even violence, reflecting realities for many couples in that time and place.
And that's the key insight here. Marriage is far more than a love story. It's also a socioeconomic institution.
Exactly. Scholars like Adshade and Kuntz show us it has taken wildly different forms throughout history and across cultures. For most of human history, marriage was primarily about managing resources,
Right.
uniting families, and building wealth, not romantic love as we think of it today. What we often see as traditional family values is actually nostalgia for a very brief, recent historical anomaly.
That's fascinating. The sources trace how American marriage expectations have evolved. It started focused on basic needs and survival. Then through the 1950s, we saw the rise of companionate marriage.
Right. In a companionate marriage, marital satisfaction came from playing roles well. The husband is provider, the wife is homemaker and parent.
Clearly defined roles.
Specialized gender skills, like Mayma's domestic abilities, were highly valued and seen as contributing to the success of the unit.
But by the 21st century, we've shifted to the self-expressive marriage. Now we expect our partners to meet needs at the very top of Maslow's hierarchy.
Self-actualization stuff.
Exactly. Self-expression, personal growth, finding meaning. Marriage is seen as a tool for individual fulfillment, a huge shift from its historical function.
This shift is also seen through the lens of Appalachian culture described in the sources. Clannishness, suspicion of snobbery, distrust of outsiders.
Right.
A core survival trait was being content with what you have, which made a hard life more bearable by limiting aspirations. Complaints were often met with reminders of how much one did have compared to others.
The author questions if her own modern desire for a self-expressive relationship means she's gone too far in rejecting this getting above one's raising mindset. She wonders if the sheer luxury of choice she has actually makes finding a satisfying partner harder for her than it was for Mama,
Interesting point.
who had fewer options but perhaps a clearer social script to follow.
This brings us to the author's own experience, navigating the complexities of modern dating after her breakup. Finding herself single at 30, she decided to actively undo some of the effects of years spent seeking validation in love.
How did she do that?
This meant consciously practicing identifying her own desires, even something as simple as deciding if she actually liked eggs with runny yolks or firm ones.
It's the little things, right? It highlights how easily we can lose track of our own preferences when we're prioritizing pleasing a partner or seeking external validation.
Definitely. She reveals she used to lie about having a boyfriend in Bolivia in grad school just to feel worth befriending.
Wow.
She saw being chosen by someone, especially getting engaged in the South where she's from, as the pinnacle of romantic validation.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. She realized this constant need to prove her interestingness through being chosen actually stopped her from doing interesting things on her own.
Online dating presented its own set of narratives. She recounts a date with a man named Scott, who confessed to fabricating an elaborate, more romantic story about how they met.
Oh, the fake meet cute.
Exactly. And she noticed how common it was for men's profiles to say things like, "I'm willing to lie about how we met," implying a shared shame or a belief that their actual mundane meeting story wasn't good enough unless it sounded like a rom-com.
This really underlines the tyranny of the meet cute.
Yeah.
The source points out how the way people meet seems to matter disproportionately.
Yeah, why is that?
Not just to the couple, but to everyone they tell. Screwball comedies and romantic comedies from It Happened One Night onward have ingrained this idea of unlikely, surprising, dramatic, fateful encounters, implying destiny.
Right, it has to be fate. Her own teenage fantasy of a movie theater meet-cute was simply her wishing fate had something better, more scripted in store for her.
It's interesting that while the meet-cute trope remains powerful, the source notes articles discussing the death of the traditional romantic comedy,
Oh, yeah.
suggesting a cultural shift towards comedies of exasperation, not infatuation.
Huh. So, less fairy tale, more reality. She revisits her actual first meeting with Kevin, a linguistics class, needing a photographer for the paper, manufacturing an excuse to talk to him.
The mundane reality.
The stark difference between the feeling of inevitability she later applied to their story and the awkward reality of that first night, him falling asleep, no kiss.
Huh. Not exactly fireworks. She describes seeing photos of his best friend Helen from Germany and hearing him express distrust of mundane American life, fueling his desire for adventure abroad, colored by German words, trains, and electronic music.
Right.
She felt like she was a distraction from his grander plans and the unsettling aftermath of 9/11.
She also shares a detail about that time, dancing and kissing other guys while seeing Kevin without telling him because he hadn't asked for exclusivity.
Complicated boundaries.
She framed this as creating her own secrets, finding other mouths to kiss, to feel powerful and independent in a relationship that felt uncertain.
The breakup itself, she notes, was difficult, but felt pressured to be portrayed as amicable, a kind of socially ordained kindness.
Right, the conscious uncoupling narrative.
Exactly. It wasn't true. There were slammed doors and broken plans. She wished she could present the inventory of how genuinely painful it was, but felt the world only wanted the clean, easy version.
Living alone after the breakup was a period of profound loneliness, but also rediscovery. Changing small habits, like listening to simple music or buying cilantro, which Kevin hated, made her realize how unsure she was of her own preferences without the filter of his influence.
Reclaiming herself.
Yeah. Was I really a rock climber, or had I been pretending? She wondered. In this new solitude, her dog, Roscoe, became a source of essential intimacy.
Pets are the best for that. This personal journey leads us to look at how science and alternative relationship models offer different lenses on love, challenging those ingrained stories.
Okay, so moving beyond personal stories.
Right. The source brings in the fascinating study of prairie voles.
Prairie voles. Tell me more. These are one of the rare mammals, only about 3%, that form lifelong pair bonds and co-parent.
And researcher Larry Young found a key difference between the monogamous prairie vole and its non-monogamous cousin, the meadow vole.
What was it?
The density of oxytocin and vasopressin receptors in the brain's reward system. Prairie voles are wired to associate their mate with pleasure.
So it's brain chemistry.
Basically, yeah. The insight here is that, at a fundamental biological level, mammals appear to be wired for this kind of deep connection. Seeing love as something explainable through chemistry can be surprisingly soothing,
Oh, so.
making it feel predictable and unextraordinary in a comforting way. Less mystical, maybe?
This scientific perspective connects nicely to Arthur Aaron's famous study designed to create interpersonal closeness, perhaps even romantic love between strangers.
Yes, the 36 question.
That's the one. It involved 36 increasingly personal questions, followed by 4 minutes of silent eye contact. The anecdotal result, 2 participants reportedly marrying afterward, captured public imagination.
The author was initially skeptical, but she found useful hope in the idea that trust and intimacy might be something ordinary you could consciously generate.
Like you can work at it.
Exactly, rather than something solely dependent on chance or fate.
She decided to try the 36 questions herself with Mark on a date.
Okay, putting it to the test.
She describes the questions escalating quickly, getting deeply personal, and the 4 minutes of silent eye-gazing was both thrilling and terrifying.
I can imagine.
In that intense moment, she wasn't just seeing Mark. She felt she was seeing someone really seeing me, appreciating the profound, astounding biological reality of the eye itself.
The result for them was that they did fall in love.
It worked.
Well, she felt the study provided a deliberate entry point into their relationship, making it feel like a choice they made together, not just something that happened to them,
Oh.
pushing back against the falling narrative.
The source also pushes the boundaries of traditional scripts by introducing the concept of non-monogamy and polyamory.
Okay, moving beyond the couple script.
What's insightful here is that this upends one of our most basic assumptions about love, that it is exclusive and that exclusivity is part of what gives it value.
While polyamory is starting to appear in popular culture, think Twilight or Hunger Games, it's often presented as a source of conflict or a dramatic choice.
Right, like a love triangle problem.
Not a viable narrative model for happy, ethical relationships.
The source shares perspectives from people like Bobby and Roxanne who practice non-monogamy. Their approach isn't about finding one person to make them whole.
Interesting.
It's about actively enlarging themselves and finding joy in others' joy. They reject the common idea that love inherently involves suffering or self-sacrifice, pushing back against the notion that altruism, the less I get out of it, the more loving it must be.
This highlights the crucial point about narratives again. They noted the striking lack of cultural stories that depict happy, healthy, non-monogamous relationships.
Right, we don't see that often.
Underscoring the need for new stories that model the sheer capacity of love, showing that our capacity for connection might be far greater than traditional scripts allow.
So after exploring all these different angles, how does the author navigate reality and define her own happy ending or perhaps her own ongoing story?
Yeah, where does she land?
Deciding to move in with Mark wasn't a simple fairy tale step. It involved late night talks, even crying over breakfast, feeling like she couldn't quite figure out how to practice love, and questioning why she was supposed to know what was best.
She found perspective by looking at other people's unconventional stories, like those from the Longest Shortest Time podcast.
Oh yeah, great stories there.
Couples, like accidental gay parents, or a happily divorced couple, successfully raising a child together. These relationships actively reject traditional presumptions about how families or partnerships should be formed,
Right.
offering alternative models that made her see the world just a little bit differently.
The shift after moving in was surprisingly rapid. The intense focus on preserving her autonomy faded, replaced by a feeling of being content to be in this space, our space.
The hour.
Exactly. Joy appeared in small, ordinary moments, reading The Atlantic over breakfast, finding new silly names for the dog. The shift from my to our marked a real transformation. Buying a kitchen table together felt like a significant investment, a symbol of choosing to build a life in this space.
She concludes that this isn't a definitive happy ending, and that's a key insight.
Right, life isn't a movie.
Love stories have endings, but love itself is ongoing and continually warped and renewed by the people who do the loving. For her, the act of writing about love became deeply intertwined with the ongoing process of loving Mark.
Even the simple phrase, I love you, carries layers of meaning depending on the moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes said when I am annoyed, sometimes as a ritual, sometimes as a heartfelt exclamation.
The source touches on the constant, often unsolicited advice people receive about love.
Oh, everyone's an expert.
Right. A powerful insight here is that this advice often serves the giver's need for cognitive closure. They want a neat theory to make sense of a complex world.
So it's more about them than you.
Often, yeah. These rigid theories about love can feel like hostile bacteria when you're trying to navigate your own messy reality.
She realizes the problem in her relationship with Kevin wasn't simply the ending, but her tendency to turn love into an equation, fixating on his flaws, rather than focusing on how she could be a better partner herself.
When she was single, the prevalent dating advice was solely focused on finding a life partner. But she found genuine happiness was easier to come by when she stopped trying to please others or fulfill a specific role.
And just lived.
And simply focused on trying to have a good time. She questions if the pressure for certainty for knowing the right way to love is actually deadening to the living, breathing reality of a relationship.
That makes sense.
The focus perhaps should be less on being the one and more on simply focusing on being good to one another and loving each other well in the messy, ongoing present.
This leads back to the idea from Aaron's study. Love, or at least intimacy and trust, can be consciously generated. It's more pliable than our ingrained stories suggest.
And ultimately, the source proposes that perhaps the only real solution we have to the problem of love isn't a perfect script or a theory.
What is it then?
But the active, ongoing practice of love itself. The act of saying, I love you, and living it out day by day.
So we've taken a deep dive into how the stories we inherit and absorb from family histories to fairy tales and rom-coms deeply shape our expectations, often oversimplifying the incredibly complex reality of love.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. We've seen how relationships aren't static, but evolve, influenced by history, culture, biology, and those inevitable moments of doubt and uncertainty.
And the crucial takeaway is that love isn't a predictable script to follow or an equation you solve to find the one.
Right. There's no single right way to experience it or build a life with someone.
Take a moment now to reflect on the love stories that shaped you, the ones from your family, movies, books, or friends. How have they influenced your own beliefs and expectations about what love should look like?
If love is truly ongoing and pliable, something that can be found and expressed in complex, sometimes unconventional ways, what does that mean for how you approach connection and intimacy in your own life?
Yeah, especially when your personal story deviates from the familiar script.
Can you shift your focus from chasing a predetermined ending to simply concentrating on being good to one another and loving well in the present moment?